All right, let's talk about carbon credits versus carbon offsets. I know they sound almost the same, right? But they are completely different ways of dealing with emissions. We're going to break it all down for you, nice and simple.
So you've totally seen this, right? You're booking a flight, and that little box pops up asking if you want to offset your carbon emissions. It sounds like a good thing to do, but what does it actually mean? What are you paying for? And is that the same thing as a carbon credit? Let's get into it.
You know, the easiest way to wrap your head around this whole thing boils down to one simple idea. Are we talking about getting permission to pollute or making a correction for pollution that's already happened?
Seriously, just lock those two words in your brain for the next couple of minutes. Permission versus correction. That's it. That's the secret key to understanding everything we're about to cover.
Okay, first up, let's tackle the permission side of things. We're diving into the world of carbon credits.
So, what is a carbon credit? Well, it's pretty much what it sounds like. It's a permit. One credit gives a company the official green light to pump 1 ton of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Simple as that.
Yeah, you can really just think of it like a permission slip to pollute. It's kind of like a hall pass from the government that says, yep, you're officially allowed to create this much pollution.
And this is how it works in a system called cap and trade. First, the government sets a total limit, a cap, on how much pollution is allowed, period. Then, they give out these permission slips to big companies. Now, here's the cool part. If a company is super efficient and doesn't use all of its slips, it can sell the leftovers to another company that needs more. It's a whole marketplace for pollution permits.
Okay, so that's the whole permission idea. Now, let's flip the coin over and talk about the correction. This is where carbon offsets come in.
Now, a carbon offset is a completely different beast. This isn't about getting permission before you pollute. No, this is about what you do after. It's basically a payment you make to a project that promises to reduce or pull 1 ton of CO2 out of the atmosphere to, balance out the ton you just put in. Exactly. Think of it like this. You've made a mess. You took that flight, you used electricity, and now you're hiring a cleanup crew to go fix an equivalent mess somewhere else in the world. So what does this cleanup crew actually do? Well, all sorts of things. They might be planting a whole bunch of trees because trees literally breathe in CO2. Or maybe they're building a new wind farm, which means less coal needs to be burned. They could even be restoring a wetland. The whole point is you're funding a real-world project that leads to less carbon in the air.
All right, let's put it all together. We've got our permission slips and we've got our cleanup crews. Let's look at them side by side so it's absolutely crystal clear.
See? It really is that simple. Carbon credits are permission to emit. Carbon offsets are a correction for emissions that have already happened. One is proactive, the other is reactive. One allows it, the other tries to balance it. So, let's go back to that flight booking website. When you click that little box, you're dealing with offsets. You're voluntarily paying for a correction for that cleanup crew we talked about. So let's just run through a quick summary. Who uses credits? That's the big companies in a mandatory, regulated system. And offsets? That can be anyone. You, me, companies, usually on a voluntary basis. What is it? A credit is an allowance to pollute. An offset is funding for a project to clean up pollution. See the difference? One's a mandatory system, the other's a voluntary market. Okay, so we get the difference now. Permission versus correction. But what's the big takeaway here? What really matters? And I know what you're thinking. Which one is better? Should we be doing the permission slips or the cleanup crews? It's a fair question. But maybe that's not even the right question to ask. Because the real answer, the most important truth in all of this, is this. The cleanest carbon is the carbon that never gets emitted in the first place. Look, at the end of the day, both credits and offsets are just tools. They're trying to manage a massive problem. And they can help. But neither one is a magic bullet. They're not a substitute for the real solution, which is just making less of a mess to begin with, reducing our emissions right at the source. So there you have it. Permission versus correction. Two very different tools for tackling the same big challenge. Hey, if you enjoyed this and want more tricky energy topics made super simple, go ahead and subscribe to Energy Simply Explained. Thanks so much for tuning in.